You're listening to Vilified, Janae's Story, Season 1, Episode 8, The Stigma of Man. You know what I can't stand? Opinions. Everybody's got one, and they're for damn sure going to tell you about it. Just look at the professional popular podcasters. There's leftists, religious, conservatives, and they're like shoving their opinions down your throat if you let them. The key is to not let them. You think that, right? But they're everywhere, on the news, online, and at your door. I know you know what I mean. I'm not trying to stir up anyone or tell anyone what to believe. Do you? But the rhetoric that is being preached could cause your head to spin. What am I trying to say, right? It is these small-minded people who create stereotypes that we all gotta live with. That's right, stigma. I fucking hate that mess. Just assuming that people with schizophrenia are gonna snap, please. There are some of us that were never like that, and no diagnosis is gonna change that. I'm working on a project that I will share at the end of this episode. Come on, people. It's time to get ready. Welcome to your favorite podcast from your favorite podcaster. If you have heard of this podcast before, I cannot control my mouth, nor do I want to. Life is short, time is money, and I ain't got time for that. But all jokes aside, this show is not for sensitive people. I cuss a lot. This is a brutally honest show that doesn't look away. If you don't like that, then I suggest you find a family-friendly episode. I have a tendency to talk about things like sex, violence, self-harm, and murder. I told you. This is your final warning. You ready? Here we go. My name is Janae, and this is my story. Do you slave away from 9 to 5, working for someone that you don't like? Are you a blue-collar worker out in the sun, developing more muscles than any superhero? What do? I'm an entrepreneur, which means I work for myself. Why? I can't handle the stress. A while ago, I was in the rat race. Clock in, clock out, living from paycheck to paycheck, and falling deeper and deeper into debt. I couldn't help it. Quit every damn job because it always triggered me. It's easier to work for myself. Yep, I have an LLC. But what does Joe think of mentally ill people? We're lazy, sucking on the government's tit. Crazy time bombs. Come on. Before you were diagnosed, did you or did you not look down on bipolar people or schizophrenics? Don't be shy. Admit it. With it everywhere, I too was ignorant. Now don't take offense. Dictionary.com states that ignorance is lack of knowledge, learning, information, etc. That's all it is, lack of information. Until I was diagnosed with schizophrenia. As I was researching for today's topic, I had to read through a few articles, and the stuff they were saying about my illness made me so sad I had to stop what I was doing and take a break. It was heart-wrenching. According to KHN.org, Adults with serious mental illnesses face 80% unemployment. Fuck, that's a lot. The article goes on to say that once on SSI or SSD, Windenberg says people are unlikely to get off. The most common reason for leaving the programs are death or retirement. Wow. Let's say you get off disability or SSI. Then what? The question becomes, is it enough to live off? I know a trigger: stress. That and the fact that some of us simply cannot concentrate on anything, not with shadow people or voices in our heads. I know I can't. Listen, the majority of my life has been driving jobs. Why? Because I had no boss and I could listen to music all day. I was a 1099 all the way. You see, when I'm under major stress, I freak out and pull my hair out, cuticle and all. It's a quirk, and sometimes I don't even realize I'm doing it. Now, I own a small business and work 12 hours a day. I do it to keep the voices at bay, because if I gave in to listen, I would be dead. In keeping up with my signature move and sticking with the topic of schizophrenia, I'd like to shine the spotlight on a celebrity you may know who had schizophrenia. What comes to mind when I say Betty Page? Do you get images of the scandalous pinup? Yes, she was drop dead gorgeous, sexy, and an icon. But do you know her true story? Sit back, relax, and let me tell you the tale of Miss Betty May Page. Betty grew up in poverty. Her family was like gypsies, always on the move. She had two sisters, and surprisingly, they spent a year in an orphanage when their parents couldn't take care of them. That reminds me of Hansel and Gretel for some odd reason. Their parents couldn't take care of them either. But I digress. Her father, who was lower than pond scum, began molesting her when she was only 13. But Betty was bright and active as a student. A member of the debate team and named class salutatorian, which means Betty demonstrated outstanding academic achievement during 4 years in high school. She was voted most likely to succeed. In 1947, Betty moved to New York City in hopes of becoming an actress. She became a secretary at the American Bread Company. A few days into her arrival, she was sexually assaulted by a group of men, and she ended up going back to Nashville, Tennessee. After a few weeks, she went back to New York City. In 1950, while walking along Coney Island shore, Betty met an NYPD officer named Jerry Tibbs, who moonlighted as a photographer and gave her his card. He got her into pinup modeling. He was to do it for free, just as long as he was the one photographing her. He also suggested she get her signature bangs. In 1951, Betty's image appeared in men's magazines like Wink, Titter, Eyeful, and Beauty Parade. From 1951 through 1981, Irving Klaw photographed her for a mail order with pinup and BDSM making her a bondage model. Claw also made black and white specialty films. Betty acted out scenarios of abduction, domination, bondage, spanking, and dressed in leather costumes and restraints. She was also a stern dominatrix. Along with the rise of her fame, her health began to deteriorate. She suffered from breaks with reality, otherwise known as a psychotic break. Sadly, in 1972, police were notified and witnessed her running through a motel complex, waving a gun and threatening retribution of God. A month later, she forced her ex-husband and his children to pray to the picture of Jesus at knife point, threatening eye gouging and disembowelment if they looked away. After this, she was admitted to 4 months of hospitalization. There, she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. After moving back in with her ex-husband, she trashed the house enraged. Cops were called again, but while in custody, she masturbated in the cop car. That landed her in the hospital for 6 more months, where they monitored her on suicide watch. In 1979, she attacked her landlord, an elderly woman, with a knife unprovoked. She was charged yet again for assault with a deadly weapon. She pled not guilty by reason of insanity and was sentenced to 5 years in the state hospital. Oddly, they released her less than a year later. Unsurprisingly, Betty attacked another elderly woman and professed she was there to kill her, using God as an excuse. She then sliced the corner of the elderly woman's mouth to her ear. Ugh. Betty didn't stop there. She also severed the woman's finger and stabbed her 4 times in the chest. But the woman survived. Betty pled not guilty by reason of insanity again. She was sentenced to 8.5 years, of which she served it in its entirety. Fast forwarding, on December 6, 2008, Betty was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, having suffered a heart attack, and was placed on life support. Her family eventually agreed to discontinue it on December 11th, 2008, and she died at the age of 85. Despite this, not all schizophrenic people are dangerous. Most lead ordinary lives, blended in amongst the population, just trying to survive. I'm an advocate for the mentally ill. I call upon all of you to stop the stigma of the mentally ill. We didn't ask for this. I want to say something. I jumped I jumped from, I don't know, 1980 something to 2008 because I didn't want this part to be so long. And just know she became a Christian and she stopped modeling. So, and there were no more attacks, by the way. But in closing, I would like to announce some great news. I'm putting out a book next year. It's called struggled, failed, and got back up. How I clawed my way out of mental hell and found myself. I thought of the idea while recording last week's episode. It's going to have a companion workbook and journal. You'll be able to pre order it in November. Just visit JanaeWritesIt.com and send me an email. There you will find my other projects, like my other podcast, How Not to Write with Janae, and my store for every writer's need. So if you're a novice writer, you'll fit right in. I also have a YouTube that I'm going to start posting on, and it's called Janae Writes Books. On there, I will be posting twice a week. One of them is going to be a vlog of my steps journal, personal journal, whatever you call it, from me writing books to me getting published. So there's that. And on the other day that I'm going to pick, I'm going to be talking about relative topics like mindfulness, being a single mother, I don't know, other things. So if you like this podcast and my other one, then I'm sure you'll enjoy my YouTube channel. Also, I'll be doing giveaways and lives, so get excited. Well, this is where I leave you, good people. Remember, everyone has a light. Don't be afraid to shine. And as always, stand tall, my dears.